It's time to get started with the session. I would like to thank each and everyone who has joined in. To get started, we have our moderators with us, and I kindly request Dr. Meeta Gupta, who is the moderator for this session, to please introduce the topic. We also have Dr. Anjali Miglani with us. She is also going to be the co-moderator for this session.
Morning, afternoon, evening, dignitaries, experts, and delegates from all over the world. Today's theme is Korsakovian method of dilution. This method was invented by Korsakov. It is different from Hahnemannian dilutions. How it was invented, how it is different from Hahnemannian method, and what is the utility of this method? We will learn from our learned speakers. To begin with, I would like to invite Dr. Nikolai Zamarano. He will be speaking on Korsakov Semen Nikolaevich, Russian genius in homeopathy. Over to you, Dr. Nikolai.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm happy to see all of you and introduce this our session devoted to Korsakov, our Russian genius of homeopathy. He wrote about this to Hahnemann. Korsakov is pioneer in development of artificial intellect in science and in homeopathy. He invented intellectual machines which processes data on information for the searching, comparing, and classifying of information. His work allowed to Hahnemann to create repertoire of homeopathic materia medica. Our Russian homeopathic community honor the memory of Semyon Korsakov and constantly visit the place of his life where he lived and worked. Homeoscope, and next one, comparator. He prepared by hands himself these machines. One else. Еще один слайд.
Следующий.
Да. Every year we spend World Homeopathic Day with the Liga Medicum Homeopathic Internationalis, first in Moscow in April 2018, like Memory Day for honor of Semyon Korsakov. Следующий. We have invited вернитесь назад еще, пожалуйста. Назад вернитесь. We have invited on this data President of Liga, Dr. Alok Parikh, and we, because we have a custom of awarding the Korsakov medal during this visit in 2018 Russian Day of Homeopathy, Dr. Parikh was awarded of Korsakov medal too. We have visited the grave of Semyon Korsakov. This place is nearby Moscow, 220 kilometers in the Tver region. Следующий. Не получается?
Я переключаю, но тут
Виснет.
у меня на компьютере переключилось,
А здесь нет.
здесь нет. Сейчас догонит.
Угу, догонит.
Пойдем по-другому.
This place, Taruso, is homestead of Korsakov, where he lived and where he have grave, and You can see the stone on the grave of Korsakov and his homestead. Now this homestead his, and now this only forest. Следующий. Nearby is a local historical museum in Dmitrov city. This historical museum has a exposition dedicated to Semyon Korsakov. This exposition dedicated for him and have a stand. Следующий.
Переключил.
Пошел наперед. У меня, this is local museum. Следующий.
Вы рассказываете, просто он подтормаживает.
Ага. Следующий. In the museum, we have an exposition of stands devoted to Korsakov, and there you can see history of his family and his work in mathematics and in the homeopathy also. Следующий. This one stand with exposition. Unfortunately, it works very slow. This is a stone. Там внизу надо нажать, внизу, на него нажмите, и внизу будет такая полосочка, которая запустит движение. Вот здесь, вот, на нем, вот тут.
Вот, наверное, следующий.
Нет, этот. Ну
Нет,
ладно,
нет.
неважно. Угу.
Вы про фильм говорите?
Нет, фильм дальше. This is a place of where is grave cemetery, is grave of Korsakov, and they destroyed of church. We try to repair it. Следующий. We try to help in require. This is our group who visited this place devoted to Korsakov, and this year we preparing our trip to these places and preparing this trip as a traditional visit to the place of Korsakov where he lived. Следующий.
Я переключил.
So during this trip we have visited very many interesting places, and next 2022 year will be jubilee of the Korsakov, and our homeopathic community preparing special event for this, and we invite to organize homeopathic occasions and events in all the world homeopathic during next year under the name Korsakov names. And just now we can see our trip and film about it, and watch the on YouTube also channel. Okay. Our trip was organized during the celebration of the Day of Russian Homeopathy held in October. We organized a group bus trip to the place of Semyon Korsakov, lived and worked. As I said, we lived in the village of Tarusovo, Dmitrovsky district, Tver region. His estate was called Trinity Vyazniki. During this trip, we recalled the achievements, success, and contribution of Semyon Korsakov to homeopathy, and his contribution is very significant. This contribution was highly appreciated by himself, Hahnemann. As already mentioned, Korsakov was in close correspondence with Master Hahnemann. According with Korsakov's suggested ideas, Hahnemann began using the method of preparation homeopathic dilution in one bottle container. This helps to the future to make it easy and available in homeopathy to prepare super high homeopathic dilution and then to prepare this dilution by machines. Also, this method of preparation homeopathic dilution in one container makes a possibility to quickly prepare high dilution of drugs in any condition, not only in laboratory. In addition, Korsakov suggested Hahnemann to use the long-term storage of homeopathic dilution by applying them to sugar grains or globules, drying and storing them in dry form. By the way, this made it possible to preserve the grains preparated by Hahnemann himself, test them now and show their effectiveness after 200 years of storage. Also, the preparation and storage of homeopathic dilution in dry form made a possibility of Hahnemann to realize his idea of creating a third scale of dilution. As you know, this is scale of LMHI potency. It consists of two preparing phases, liquid and solid. That is, the preparation are preparated by dissolve of dynamization and dilution in solution, and then applying this dilution to dry pills, from which the dilution is then prepared again in liquid phase. As you know, as is known, Hahnemann saturated liquid dilution with very small sugar granules, the size of poppy size. It was the idea that allowed Hahnemann to realize his principle of anti-miasmatic treatment and to realize its original principle, which were written in first paragraph of his organon. It is necessary to treat gently, reliability, effectiveness. It also knows that Korsakov did a lot of statistic researches in the field of the processing large amount of data and created intellectual intelligent machine. It was the first prototype of modern computers. Korsakov works allowed Hahnemann to implement another his idea to create the directory of symptoms of homeopathic materia medica. He called this reference book the repertory. Sorry, please, some 1 minute addition because it was stopped. We arrive the graveyard where the grave of Semyon Nikolaevich Korsakov, the guide of the local museum, Sergei, told us interesting fact from the biography of Korsakov. By the way, in the local Dmitrov Historical Museum, there are special exhibition of stands dedicated of Korsakov, as I said. Sergei said that Korsakov was a very talented and educated man. He speaks in many languages, correspondence with Hahnemann in French. This little are keeping in the archives of the museum now. Korsakov list of hobbies included geography, hobbies, biology, botany, mathematics, medicine, and so on. He was familiar with the host and many famous people at his estate. He was often visited with a writer, very famous, Lev Tolstoy, Saltykov-Shchedrin. The Korsakov estate was called Troitsa-Vyazniki and was located on the bank of the river, and in the opposite bank was his village Tarusova. In the estate, he built a church, and in Tarusova a school for the children of persons where they were taught and teached, and the whole Korsakov by whole Korsakov family. Korsakov was very fond of medicine and treatment all patient himself, primarily with homeopathy. The first got acquaintment with homeopathy when he himself became ill and was cured by homeopathy during by Berberis remedy. This really impressed him since the drug was diluted 30 times. After that, he became interested in homeopathy and began to conduct many experiments. As you know, he created his own producing system, later called the Korsakov system. Korsakov was a kind of the responsible person. He treated his persons completely free of charge. He went to sick patient both day and night and in any weather. Many patients came on her brought to his home for treatment. For a month, he received at least 150 people. In total, he cured during his life more than 10,000 patients. He kept records and record of patients, did analysis of their conditions. Presents statistic data on them. He got up very early in the morning, always worked in the garden and at home. Then he treated sick patients. He did a lot of scientific research about which he wrote to Hahnemann. In turn, Hahnemann highly appreciated his work of Semyon Korsakov. Thus, Hahnemann wrote to him, "Dear sir, I never cease to admire your tireless energy with which you do all the work." Then Tarusov was a famous place. That time was a famous place for the progressive Russian publics. Famous writers, as I said, Lev Tolstoy, also Saltykov-Shchedrin, Ivan Krylov. In addition, Fermat, the Sebrists, the Norov brothers, and anarchist theoretics Bakunin, and the famous chemist Dmitry Mendeleev, the creator of periodical table of clinical chemical elements. By the way, his wife was a helper of him, and she is buried in the same grave with Semyon Korsakov. Family has 10 children. The most famous is their eldest son, Mikhail Korsakov. He became Governor General of Eastern Siberia and Far Eastern. A number of cities of Siberia and the Far Eastern are named after him. He is buried nearby with his father. You saw a memorial plaque, red in color, next to the stone of the grave of Semyon Korsakov. Korsakov himself bequeathed to put a big rich stone on his grave, which is still here. Thanks to him, his burial was not lost in history. In the museum of the district center of the city Dmitrov, as Sergei said, there is an exhibition of stand dedicated to Semyon Korsakov, his life and work. Near his graveyard, there is a church built by Korsakov family in the 19 and 20, but it was destroyed in Soviet times. Currently, Sergei, our guide, said our group engaged in the repair and restoration of this church. The problem is that the church has been declared as a state monument of activeness, heritage, heritage monument, and the funds have been allocated for its restoration. Only a group of enthusiasts is actively engaged in this repair and restoration of this monument. There is general financial difficulties, but nevertheless, following to our efforts, we were able to make a roof vault of the church building and the bell tower, restore the steeple, install of cross of the start and start of service. Some homeopathic films helps in restoring the burial place of Semen Korsakov in the cemetery. Dr. Kosmodemyansky, our national vice president for the Liga, talk about efforts made earlier by the homeopathic community to restore monument dedicated to Korsakov family. So the stone on grave is a very bad condition. There was the fence around the grave. He also know the contribution of enthusiast homeopaths in the restoration of monument dedicated to Korsu. There are doctors Patudin and Dr. Mishenko. Our national vice president Kosmodemyansky made a speech and said that the Russian homeopathic community traditionally traveled to the place of Semen Korsakov live place on the day of Russian homeopathy in October. It has become a tradition. We visit this grave and celebrate his contribution to science and homeopathy in member of the labor achievements and legacy. We believe that the tradition of visiting to this place associated with Korsakov is very good tradition on the day of Russian homeopathy. We invite everyone to take part in such kind trips. Now we are actively restoring Korsakov legacy. It is planned to build a monument to Semyon Korsakov, restore the church and the estate where the family lived. Therefore, we call to the world homeopathic community.
Apologies, sir, but the time is running out.
Okay, 1 minute. The church was destroyed during the Soviet period. We walls outside and inside the temples and subject extensive restoration. We are organizing fundraiser for the repair of the restoration of the church, but the service church is still go on. We are leaving the burial place of Semen Korsakov by the bridge. This bridge across the river is very symbolic. It seems to connect the past and the future as it is connected the shores. We say goodbye to Sergei Agit of museum enthusiast and activist to the restoration of the temple and monument of Korsakov. He lives near Tarusova, saying goodbye to us and ask help to his noble and the restorer to legacy of Semen Korsakov. And now we returning to Moscow and started to preparation of our Moscow nearest 32nd homeopathic conference in January. It will be held in January next year in the People Friendship University of Russian, and we invite everyone to take part in this. We are holding the conference in honor of Semen Korsakov anniversary. We will hold all events in 2022 under the name of Korsakov in the homeopathic world, please. And we call on the entire world homeopathic community to hold all homeopathic events in next 2022 year under the name of Semyon Korsakov. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm finished.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Nikolai.
Thank you. Thank you. So,
And I think we can move ahead with the next presentation. I request Dr. Michael van Wassenhausen to please share his screen and begin his presentation. Thank you very much. Look forward to your talk, Michael.
Dr. Michael, you have to unmute yourself.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
Okay, and you see my presentation too?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Congratulations to the organizers for this very impressive LMHI Global Colloquium. Thanks also for this invitation to present the Genome Research Project. This presentation is about pharmacology, a look into our homeopathic medicines that are not empty placebo. To be able to get a comprehensive look at our medicines, we need to consider different angles of view on it. For our project, we have access to a coherent and successive measurement tools, starting from the nuclear magnetic resonance to go to the electrophotonic analysis. And this aim of this presentation is to present all of these techniques to you. But first, some explanation about these techniques. I hope that the sound of this film will reach you.
No, it's still there is no audio, sir.
Okay, I will go on without the film. It's not a problem. I will explain it during my presentation. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Nuclear magnetic resonance is able to identify the specific signature of homeopathic medicine in pure water solvent. This allows us to discriminate different source material and manufacturing process between each other. A simple dilution is not a dynamized medicine. All these measurements were done at the University of Mons in Belgium. These nuclear magnetic resonance results are confirmed and published by several teams in the world. Because of this measurement, the next step is to explain why this relaxation time are specifically slowed down in a peculiar homeopathic manufacturing line, and therefore we need to go to the next step, and the next step is nano-tracking analysis. Looking at this potentization with a nano-tracking analyzer, we have demonstrated that particles are in all homeopathic medicines, even in high dynamized remedies. This is undoubtful. Here you see some images from Argentum metallicum, and you see particles are not only present alone, but also in agglomerates, as has been published by other authors already. In a dynamized preparation, there is a great homogeneity of distribution of particle size, as you can see here. This is a dynamized preparation. In a simply diluted preparation, particle size and distribution of it is much more variable and incoherent. Size distribution of particles of 6 pooled manufacturing lines of lactose 30C, this is on the left side of your screen here, is very narrow and concentrated around 100 nanometers. For cuprom 30C on the right, size distribution is much broader and goes up to 500 nanometers. Quantities are about 7 million particles per milliliter for lactose 30C and 8 million particles per milliliter of solution for cuprom. Comparing pure dynamized lactose with dynamized cuprom metallicum and simply diluted cuprom metallicum, of course, after trituration, the difference in particle size distribution is more and more statistically significant that the potentization dilution process occurred. This fact is now accepted for publication. Because we are sure now that the presence of particle is a certainty, we have decided to extract them from the solvent by lyophilization. During this process, we see already that collected quantities in microgram per gram is the lowest for dynamized lactose. Pure water has a lot of particles because pure water is very aggressive for the bottle. This material can be now observed by scanning electron microscopy, and this occurs at another university in Louvain-la-Neuve. We see different crystalline morphologies. Here you have cuprom metallicum 19C, calcium muriaticum in the center, and another cuprom metallicum at the right side. With X-ray spectroscopy, we are able to reveal the atomic composition of this material. Carbon, oxygen, and natrium are far above all other elements, including silicea. A publication will be submitted very soon about these results. The atomic composition of this material is specific and may allow discriminance between different manufacturing lines. This is a very new fact that we can contribute for homeopathy. These elements are, of course, organized in molecules. By infrared spectroscopy at the same university, we have identified that the major component of homeopathic medicine is sodium hydrogen carbonate, modulated by other carbonates. Because we have carbonates, we may consider pH measurements of each solution. If we have specific pH measurements, it means that we have also an electric field in it. For dynamized aqua pura, this electric field is around 8 millivolt. For silicea, it is around 17 millivolt. And this during all the process of manufacturing from 4CH up to 30CH. For preparation in water and alcohol, the previous one was only in water, the electric field is then strongly negative, even in pure solvents, if pure solvents show a positive electric field of 37.5 millivolt, but it is meant 20 for cuprom metallicum. For 3 different manufacturing lines, these measurements are stable. pH measurements are also performed by other teams in the world. This process is ongoing. It seems that some specific electric fields are generated from the very beginning of the homeopathic manufacturing process, and may play a role in the specific composition of each homeopathic medicine. Electrophotonic analysis is a method that, after an electric stimulation is applied to the globules or to a drop of solution, the electronic stress coming back to rest when we stop the stimulation, we can see and record an emission of light. Here you see photographs of full manufacturing lines of cuprum metallicum above and gelseimium sempervirens under. This raw material is difficult to have any interpretation. Therefore, raw photographs are converted in a more easy to analyze image using an adapted algorithm. Here at the left, you see a not impregnated globule, and at the right side, an impregnated globule with simple water alcoholic solvent. There is no major difference in structure in both of them. This is not yet published. For Korsakovian dynamized preparation, we can compare cuprum metallicum above and gelseimium under. The structure of the emitted light is specific. You have 6, 12, 30, 200, 1,000, 10,000, and 50,000 potency. We did the same exercise for Hahnemannian dilution. Mathematical analysis of the structure of the emitted light shows significant difference between cuprum and gelseimium. Even after impregnation in globules, discrimination with this method between different manufacturing lines and different raw materials can be identified by this technology. This technology is very new. We are waiting for publication. This is done in collaboration with University of Strasbourg in France. We are already at the conclusion. All these results can be impressive, but we must be careful before any generalization or conclusion can be done. It needs more confirmation and it must be verified several times. Nevertheless, for nuclear magnetic resonance, conclusions are solid. Different manufacturing lines are not pure water. That's the first conclusion, we are sure of it. With nano-tracking analysis, after more than 450,000 measurements in our laboratory, we can formally conclude that there are always particles in all homeopathic manufacturing lines. This is also true in the highest potentization, and it don't go down during the process. Quantities of material that we can collect by lyophilization play a role in the structure we can see in the electronic microscopic photographs. At this moment, we have more than 810 photographs at our disposition. The ionic composition of this material is specific, even in dilution beyond Avogadro number. With infrared spectroscopy, we could identify sodium hydrogen carbonate and some other carbonates in all homeopathic medicines. This molecule has a strong tendency to form ionic bonds with positive charged cation and forms a very complex structure in presence of water molecule. You see at the bottom a model that you can see water molecule is integrated. pH measurement will occur at a temperature of 35 degrees Celsius, only because the structure of this sodium hydrogen carbonate is changing during the temperature. And this temperature is the temperature of the mouth. So we need to see what happens when the globule, granules, or liquid is put in the mouth of a patient. pH measurements are very promising, but as I already said, they are still in progress and we cannot conclude anything at this moment, but it should be an explanation of how it is possible that the particles are staying in all our dilutions during the dynamization process. Even in impregnated globule with electrophotonic analysis, discriminants can be detected between manufacturing lines. For sure, homeopathic medicines are not empty as a placebo. They could be a trigger for some receptors in living being, even through the skin. Thanks a lot for your attention. Sorry for the video that could not be seen, that give more explanation about the techniques, but more development are expected in the following months, and we will take in touch with all of you to give results when available. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With the permission of the chair, can we call the next speaker?
Yes, of course, please.
Thank you. May I call Professor Shailendra K. Saxena? He'll be talking on the molecular mechanism of action of belladonna as a novel antiviral.
Nessun altro che parla prima di me.
Sorry, sir.
No, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay. May we welcome Professor Shailendra K. Saxena from India. He'll be talking on the molecular mechanism of action of belladonna as a novel antiviral against Japanese encephalitis.
Yes, sir, Dr. Paulo.
More than 3 billion people living
Yes,
and
hello.
around 70 million children born each year in the JE endemic regions are at the risk of getting the infection. The burden of death and disability is predominantly borne by the children, and unfortunately, there is no treatment for JE till date. Therefore, in countries affected by JE like India, it is important to address the disease, including documenting the disease burden and ensuring that appropriate consideration is given to the treatment and prevention. What is JE? It is a severe disabling viral disease of CNS caused by Japanese encephalitis virus, an arthropod-borne flavivirus, and one of the major causes of encephalitis and death in India and throughout Southeast Asia, emerging in newer geographical areas in Torres Strait region of Australia and in Papua New Guinea, and that's why it has been classified as an important emerging infectious disease and drawing worldwide attention. Recently, in 2005, Japanese encephalitis epidemic has been recognized in the newer paddy growing fields of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Nepal. In UP alone, we have seen more than 6,000 cases and around 1,400 deaths in children. JE accounts for 50,000 acute illness per year, accompanied by 30 to 40% deaths, and approximately 2/3 of the survivors develop severe neurological and psychiatric sequelae ranging from speech disturbances to motor or sensory disturbances. These may include lifelong disability, from motor problems such as limb paralysis, behavioral changes, intellectual impairment, and other neurological problems. You can see here the area which has been shown in the yellow in the map is the approximate geographical area affected by the Japanese encephalitis. And as I said, it is emerging in the newer areas, as you can see here in the Papua New Guinea and the Torres Strait region of Australia. Now, if you see, very importantly, that how the basic transmission cycle actually works, then so if you see the virus normally maintains itself in the environment via biting the waterfowl. So that is waterfowl cycle. So the Culex cytinorhynchus mosquito bites, and then this cycle is actually maintained. Now, if you see this host range, it is you can see here that the host range is not only the pigs but also the birds and the humans and cattle, horses, bats, but they are mostly accidental hosts. They are not the actual host. The pigs are the amplifying host, and here, even if the infection happens, there is no symptoms. They remain asymptomatic. But once these mosquitoes, which are infected with the JE, bites the humans, especially children, it might cause a fatal infection, especially in the children less than 19 years of age. So what happens? The virus is injected into the humans, as you can see here, after the biting of these these cycles, then it goes to the humans via Culex titaniorhynchus. So there are several other species also shown, but primarily this species is responsible for the transmission. After hematogenesis spread in the host, JV replicates in the number of organs as well as in the local and regional lymph nodes and generates a rapid inflammatory response with mononuclear and polymorphonuclear cell infiltration. So the viral invasion of the nervous system occurs via blood, and the primary infection is followed by the establishment of the persistent infection. The clinical manifestation of the disease are fever, headache, vomiting, meningism, and nutrition of consciousness. And the role of immune response is very poorly known, and we also need to develop the novel therapeutics for this virus. And there is a very important need to understand and develop the drugs for these kind of infections, because approximately 6% of the world population live in JE endemic regions and at risk of getting infection. Not only that, anybody can get JE, but some people are at high risk, especially the people living in the areas where the disease is common, actively duty military deployed to areas where the disease is common, travelers to the areas where the disease is common. Because the diagnostic tests are not readily available in some regions, people may think there is no JE in their area. For example, awareness of JE was low in Bali, Indonesia, until a study found that the disease was widespread throughout the island. And JE is now considered as an important emerging infectious diseases by WHO. There's no cure, and of course, antibiotics are not going to work. There's no effective antiviral drugs have been discovered for JE till date. In spite of the immense clinical significance of JE till now, there's no chemoprophylactic or chemotherapeutic available for the disease. The vaccination is also not completely sure and safe. And that's why there's a desperate need to develop the antiviral drugs for these infections. You can see here, this is the trend lines. So this has been plotted in Uttar Pradesh and Andhra Pradesh, where the disease is more prevalent from 1992 to, you can see here, 2015. So in Uttar Pradesh, if you see, the cases and the deaths have increased. Whereas in Andhra Pradesh, where the belladonna has been introduced, and you can see because of that, the cases and the deaths have been significantly reduced. So that's what is very important for us to understand, that how this belladonna actually works in controlling the disease. And when I was in Hyderabad, we used to work on this. So that's how these both models are very important for us to understand that how this particular drug has actually eradicated a disease. And especially there's no mortality in Andhra Pradesh now because of the Japanese encephalitis. And when I say Andhra Pradesh, it is joint Andhra Pradesh, means the older terminology where the Telangana and Andhra Pradesh were together. Now, if you see, so when this happened in Uttar Pradesh, we have seen this, the occurrence was at the Gorakhpur, that was the epicenter of the disease, and all the adjoining eastern Uttar Pradesh areas were actually under the risk of this disease. The case fatality is around 6,000 cases and around 1,398 deaths, with the case fatality rate 22.9%. UP was the worst affected, and it was having 507 JE cases and around 1,334 deaths, with the case fatality rate was around 17.8%. However, the true incidence was much more exalted, as most of the cases remain asymptomatic and undiagnosed. Here you can see the presence of the virus in the CSF sample of one of the infected patients, showing the green color, which was labeled with the FITC, a labeled anti-JV antibody, and here these are the control samples. We have done the RT-PCR just to confirm that if the virus is actually present in these samples, and you can see it was significantly positive in the patient sample itself, and this is the control, and the first line shows the marker. Not only that, we have sequenced this envelope protein and the whole virion, and then we have submitted this under the NCBI accession number, which is given here, and this was found very close in the phylogenetic analysis with the GP78, which is another existent virus in this particular area since a long time. Now, if you see the demonstration of the inhibitory role of certain antivirals in ongoing serious acute and chronic infection has led to the increased interest in the development and testing of the new antiviral compounds. Not only this, there have been studies where people have used cyclosporin A in immunized mice with the JE-VAC, and they found there was a less mortality. People have also used interferon and interferon inducers, and they found that it might prevent the disease. We have also done a couple of experiments earlier, and where we have shown that DDTC might be a very important antiviral agent for the Japanese encephalitis. Not only this, but also in double-blind controlled trial of administration of interferon alpha 2A to the Vietnamese children indicated no benefit, and similar results were found in the oral ribavirin in KGMU itself. No specific antiviral therapy is currently available. Vaccination, as I said, is not completely safe. However, an in vivo study with belladonna has shown that inhibits JAV. So that's why we were interested to know the mechanism of this particular medicine. So we are interested to know how belladonna is playing a role in host defense during JE infection, and therefore in the present study we investigated the molecular mechanism of antiviral role of belladonna during JE, and we were interested to elucidate the molecular mechanism of action of belladonna during JE infection in vitro, and we are also trying to find out that whether it can be used as a prophylactic or therapeutic, and for that we are understanding various Th1, Th2 pathways, and for this we are doing a lot of transcriptomic level and whole genome gene expression analysis of cell cultures treated with belladonna during JE infection. Here we have used more than 1.35 million probes, and around more than 48,000 gene level probe sets were used, and this technology is so sensitive that it can tell you the expression in any genes if it happens during the presence of GE or the GE and belladonna both. So we are also trying to find out all those mechanisms by which the virus actually gets killed during the JV infection. So what we have done is we established the virus cultures with the GP05 and the GP78, which is found in this area predominantly in Uttar Pradesh. We have developed a JV cultures in BHK21, which is a baby hamster kidney cells, where the virus replicates much efficiently. We have procured a couple of equipments where there was no need of eyepiece, so you can directly see the infected culture plates, and all the staff who is working, they were actually safe. And so developed a very specific biosafety level facilities to understand these viruses when we are working and handling the safe practices with these infections. So you can see this is the morphology of the growth of JE in BHK21 cell lines. So this is the control cell lines, and these are the cytopathic effect once they develop in the cells. So cells become shrink and ballooning like structure comes up, and you can see that there's an infection, and when you compare with the control. This is one particular flask where you can see in the same flask the control cells as well as the cytopathic cells. Eventually, all the cells will become like this. So that's how we know that our cultures are JE positive and having grown the specific virus with us. Not only that, we also developed the techniques for the growth and culture of the JEV in THP1 cells. THP1 are very specific mononuclear lineage cells because they are the primary source of infections in the human body. So you can see these are the THP1 cells, which are actually the macrophage lineage cells, and these are after the infection. You can see wherever the virus is actually getting infected, So those cells actually develop a very specific balloon-like structure. This is the THP1 cells after 72 hours. And you can see here, so these are the cells which are lysing, and that's what you are seeing in the BHK as. And even if I do a plaque assay, you can actually titrate these plaques very specifically. So you can, we also check the presence of the virus with the RT-PCR just to be sure that we are seeing the cytopathic effect, not only because of anything else, but because of the Japanese encephalitis virus with the RT specific to JV primers. We further titrate the virus with the plaque assay, and a couple of more assays also we do. So this is once we set up the plaques initially with the 10-fold serial dilution of the viral stocks. And then you can see here, this is the way the blocks look like. And these plaques are actually, so these are the control. And so more the plaques, here you see it was a highly concentrated. So almost all the cells were actually lost, and lesser the dilution. If you go on, that shows that the presence of the virus. So we normally want to take a concentration which is in between, not very high, not very low, so that we can actually calculate the viral titration when we are giving the drug. So you can see here when we have used the drug belladonna, this is the plaques in the control, and this is with and without drug. So with the drug, you see the growth was very less, and without drug, the growth was, as I have shown you in the previous pictures. And so this is the middle level of dose. That's how the 50% cells get the cytopathic effect. Now here, if you see, we further developed the human THP1 cell cultures to study the molecular mechanism of action of belladonna during JE. And why we have selected THP1? Because they are the target cells during JE infection as primary macrophages. And THP1 are human-derived monocytic cells which can be easily converted into macrophages. The neurological complications during JV infection are primarily due to the infiltration of macrophages into the brain, which causes neuroinflammation. Hence, the studies on THP1 cells may give us clue about the host immune response, such as antiviral gene expression, various cytokine production, molecular mechanism of action, and disease progression during JE. And therefore, THP1 cells are the ideal cells for studying the JE pathogenesis. So the microglial cells were treated with belladonna, followed by the infection with the JEB at indica 5 dilution for 1 hour. And then we have checked the viability of the cells with the help of trypan blue. Here, what happens, the trypan blue being a non-vital dye penetrate into the non-living cells, which then appear blue in color, while the live cells do not take up the dye and they remain transparent. So whatever you can see here, the fluorescent cells, they are all the live cells. So that's how we know that the THP1 cells are actually live. We further developed the MTT assay for the cell viability during JE infection to ascertain the role of belladonna during JE. And MTT is basically a dye which is used to see that whether the optical density shows that whether the cells are actually alive or whether they are dead. And based on this, the MTT was reduced by the viable cells counting active mitochondria to dark blue colored formogeon crystals, and that's how we ascertain that whether the cells are alive even after the drug, because we do not want that whether the killing of the cells happens because of the drug or because of the virus. So we also take appropriate controls. So you can see here, when we have taken the appropriate controls and belladonna, there was a significant upregulation in the belladonna we have seen. So this suggests that belladonna actually helps in the cell viability, even in the normal cells. It's not killing the cells alone. So we further isolated the RNA by the trizol method, and then from here we did the nanodrop spectrophotometric analysis, and with this we further took this RNA and then gone for the estimating the RNA concentration to actually make the cDNA, and this is the process by which the cDNA synthesis has been done with very specific primers for the cDNA because it's RNA virus. And then we have looked at the gene expression, and you can see here, this is the NF-kappa B gene expression, and in the belladonna, it was significantly upregulated even at 48 to 72 hours. The same trend we found with the INOS, and if the INOS is up, we have earlier shown that this might actually help us to produce more nitric oxide, which eventually kills the JEV protein and viral RNA. So this is the pathway which we have further elucidated based on the various gene expression analysis. So you can see here this IL-1 beta, and there are a couple of these things which are upregulated, NF-kappa B, IRF1 stat. They eventually upregulates INOS, or they also upregulates the COX-2 that also we have evaluated later, and then we have seen that whether this eventually kills the virus. So just to see whether the IL-10 production is also upregulated, we also have seen the gene expression, and you can see the IL-10 was significantly upregulated at 48 hours. So suggesting that it helps in the survival of the neuronal cells. So this is the IL-10 pathway that actually helps with the help of various STAT and CRP2 to actually produce either TNF-alpha, BCL2, and so on, which inhibits LPS, TNF-alpha, and IL-1 induced pathway, and that's how actually helps in the survival of the neuronal cells, and that's the main target during the encephalitis, which happens because of the Japanese encephalitis virus. So which particular protein actually plays this role as an activator of this innate immune response during this infection, we still don't know. So we constructed and expressed the full-length JEB envelope protein to investigate whether flavivirus E protein can modulate this response. And what we have shown is that this E protein is actually has around 500 amino acids coded by 1500 nucleotides and has 9 helices and 37 beta sheets with 234 hydrogen bonds and 41 turns. And we further seen that in this particular protein, there were active pockets for the belladonna alkaloids. And that was the key point in this experiment when we have shown that yes, belladonna can actually bind with the Japanese encephalitis envelope protein. And if this happens, of course, this is going to kill the virus. So we further did the experiment to ascertain that whether the belladonna can be a drug, as well as whether the belladonna actually kills the virus. So we looked at drug likeliness properties of the belladonna, and what we have found that it can actually cross the blood-brain barrier. One of the biggest restriction in the diseases which happens in the brain is to send a drug in the brain, because it is not very easy to send or cross the blood-brain barrier. So that's why this happens, that it has been found that there is a significantly the drug can actually pass the blood-brain barrier. So that was a good sign. It also passed all the tests of the drug likeliness as per the Lipinski protocol, and suggests that it might be a drug of choice during the Japanese encephalitis virus infection. Another important thing was that it has a very important target in the brain, and as you see here, it's the ligands, and it has primarily the blood-brain barrier permeability. So suggesting that it has a very, very important role in the membrane receptor, which is found in the blood-brain barrier. So collectively, what we have shown is that THP1 cells after treatment with belladonna is helpful in reducing the JE, viral infection as reduction in plaque formation and enhancement of the cell proliferation. We further showed that some genes like IL-10, INOS, and NF-kappa B were significantly altered in treatment of belladonna during JV infection, which also indicates the protective role of belladonna and belladonna against JV infection. And however, further studies are required to confirm the protective role of belladonna during JV infection by elucidation of molecular mechanism of antiviral agents. So collectively, what it looks like is that during JV infection, after the treatment with the belladonna, the NF-kappa B gets upregulated, that eventually sends a signal to INOS, and this INOS actually sends a signal to make more nitric oxide. And we have earlier shown that this more nitric oxide eventually kills and the viral RNA and viral protein, and that's how actually the virus is degraded. And we have recently seen that this happens after the belladonna treatment via the Western blot analysis and so on. So I'm really thankful for your time. And these are a couple of publications which we have published, including very recent publications which came on the cover page of various prestigious journals. These are the couple of journals where it has been highlighted the antiviral role in various other diseases which we are doing from our laboratory. These are the couple of drugs which are already in the market based on our work after the approval. And it has been very widely covered by the media and several other forums where it can be actually become a drug of choice for the people who cannot afford very costly treatment. So thank you very much for your time and giving me this opportunity to speak on this work. And I hope that you like the presentation. Still, if you have.
Thank you so much, sir. Can I request the chairperson or the moderator to invite our next speaker?
Yes, indeed. Hi, it's my pleasure to invite Professor Paolo Bellaviti to please unmute himself and share his presentation. Thank you, Paolo.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all of you. I share my figures. Okay. Can you see?
Yes, sir, it's seen.
Thank you. Sorry. Just for this presentation, I've thought to give some idea about the explanation of homeopathic theory according to dynamic system theory. And this is useful for schools for education in homeopathy to build the bridge between modern science and traditional concepts. As you know, Hahnemann wrote that as every disease consists in a special morbid dynamic alteration of vital energy manifested in sensation and motion. So in every homeopathic cure, this principle of life dynamically altered by natural disease is seized through the administration of medicinal potency selected exactly according to symptom similarity. Homeopathy is the first medical system that put the dynamics of life and illness as the center of its theory. The clinical approach of homeopathy derives from the dynamic theory of disease. Unfortunately, the Hahnemann concept of dynamism has been poorly understood and often misunderstood, mostly due to ancient terminology and misunderstandings. The concept of dynamism in modern terms means energy, means movement, it means change over time. How to conceptualize this idea in scientific words? The modern theory of dynamical system can help to better understand the homeopathic dynamism and thus improve the way homeopathy is thought and practiced. I presented this idea in a very recent paper published in Integrative Complementary Medicine issue dedicated to homeopathy. A complex adaptive system is a collection of individual agents whose actions are interconnected, so that one agent's action changes the context for other agents. The idea of a dynamic network is at the center of Western medicine and also in Eastern medicine as Chinese medicine. This is the concept of dynamic changing networks. I present here a symbol of a network of 5 nodes interconnected by stimulation and inhibition connections. As a symbol, we can see a node increasing activity, a node diminishing activity, a priming concept of hypersensitivity, or a block of function, desensitization. These kind of changes can occur inside every network of our body, in the cells, or in the brain, or the endocrine system, in the immune system. A simple graphical scheme has been developed by us, wherein these features are qualitatively described. According to the most modern concept of dynamic system theory, the life force is rationalized, represented in a graphical way. This is a conceptual model very useful to understand the dynamic systems. The space of states is a useful representation of the possible situation of dynamic systems in so-called energy landscape. The area is divided in various subspaces representing hills and valleys, where the different possible states of configurations of the system can be located. In the vertical axis, we have the energy expenditure. In the horizontal axis, the series of possible states of the system. We have stable systems at the bottom of valleys, and we have unstable or metastable states in the top, where in this position, the system is far from equilibrium, consumes more energy, and this is potentially dangerous because it can change attractors. And in this position, the system is sensitive to small perturbation and to low doses. Here we can see the system, how healing power can be shown. We can envisage an ideal network in a resting state here at the bottom of the main attractor. This is called attractor, represents a healthy state. A possible internal or external stressors modify some nodes of the network. The modification spread to other nodes, and the network goes in the metal state far from equilibrium. This state is followed by further changes that are deterministic consequence of the self-organized capacity of the system. In fact, the reaction terminates when the damage is repaired, the reaction turns down, and the new equilibrium is restored. This is a spontaneous capacity of the vital energy. This is not a disease. The interesting point that we can represent the far from equilibrium state also as a system that produces symptoms, because every change of the node in our body, in each node, in each system, regulating system, produces symptoms, either during normal response to stress, during natural disease, strong in acute disease, subtle in chronic ones. And also the expression of symptoms can be obtained in healthy persons with medicines. And this is a concept of proving in homeopathy. The external symptoms, the symptoms are external manifestation of internal changes of every network. Now we can see what happens in disease. We can envisage the disease as a change of the network inside our body, as a change of matter of energy in excess, too much, for example, fever or hypercholesterolemia. Every hyper is excess, or defect, hypo, or for example, anemia, starvation, or decrease of oxygen, anoxia, ischemia, are defect of circulation, or the change are in the information in this disorder of our systems. For example, genetic disease as a disease of information, or autoimmunity is a disorder of the information inside the immune system. And Hahnemann thought that every disease consists in the dynamical alteration of vital energy, manifested in sensation and motion. It's exactly what I have shown. The disease can occur when the reactions are not proportionate to the damage, and we have therefore some further damage caused not by the first environmental trigger, but by a wrong reaction itself. We call this condition acute disease, the main cause of which is the disproportionate reaction that causes further damage. A typical example of this problem is COVID-19 disease, where most people can heal by themselves, but some people have a reaction too strong, and this reaction can even block circulation of blood or cause other autoimmune phenomena. Acute illness hurts, but in theory, it can heal spontaneously at the price of pain and risk in the life integrity if it is very serious. On the other hand, the non-optimal response turns into chronic disease. This occurs when the system altered by stress changes in such a way as to find an adaptation with the mechanism of the attractor. The self-organization of the system takes place in a minimum of energy that does not completely resolve the disorders of homeodynamics. Some imbalance remain, and energy consumption for adaptation remains high, creating further problems over time. This situation cannot heal spontaneously because the system is inside a valley of a pathologic attractor. There are many examples of this. Most of disease in the modern times are of this kind. For example, atherosclerosis, hypertension, diabetes, neurological disease, and even, as I mentioned, an autoimmune disease. This disease cannot heal by themselves because it is a kind of adaptation. And the change of the attractor, often are regulated by minimum influence that can induce the error of the pathway of our biological systems. These are called the bifurcation points. In particular cases, when the acute disease hits a system that is already affected by serious inherited or acquired predispositions, by other chronic conditions, or the use of toxic substances, we observe the progression of the disease in further steps until the damage may be so serious to threaten the life of the subject. This is called progression of disease. Well, let's go to explain what is the brilliant idea of Hahnemann. It's the proving of medicines. Hahnemann's brilliant idea was to think of medicines not first of all as drugs to heal, but as drugs capable of producing dynamic alteration of the system, or pushing the system away from equilibrium in order to present symptoms. In practice, Hahnemann described a man-made disease induced by medicine. This is very important because being artificially, but not irreversibly induced states far from equilibrium, using small doses of medicine, our body is able to heal and to return to health. The healing process of such an induced disorder is consistent and effective. This has been experimentally proven. This is not a theory. This is very important point. And the idea is the idea of Hahnemann to seek a medicine which, among all medicine, whose pathogenic effects known from having been tested in healthy individuals, has the power and the tendency to produce an artificial morbid state most similar to that of the case of disease in question. Okay. Then, what is the similar in this scheme? In brief, when the system affected by natural disease similar to the artificial one is treated with a substance capable of inducing a state far from equilibrium, as in the healthy subjects, then the system takes up a conformation capable of responding with a series of changes well oriented to the healing. According to the system, the theory of dynamic systems and attractors, the sick system is then attracted towards a healthy behavior, or at least closer to the ideal healthy state. So you see the acute state, acute disease, and the chronic disease, these diseases are similar to the far from equilibrium state that can be known by proving of medicine. If we have a medicine capable of shifting this equilibrium to this one, the disorder of the system is corrected by a movement in this direction or in this direction. The red arrow indicates that in this case there is a consumption of energy and sometimes also increase of symptoms, increase of pain. But if we are able to induce this kind of change, the system at this point knows the way to the healing, because this way is already known by the system from evolutionary standpoints. We have seen that this situation can be healed spontaneously. So the homeopathic healing is not caused by the medicine. It's caused by the life force, the life energy itself. The trick is to be able to shift the incorrect behavior of the sick person to a system far from equilibrium, which is known by the proving of medicines. So it is only by the dynamic action of the vital force that remedies are able to reestablish and do actually to reestablish health and vital harmony. I hope to have explained this concept with my presentation. In synthesis, we can say that similar principle holds that the medicine capable of regulating a diseased organism is the same medicine which is capable of inducing a similar pattern of symptoms in a healthy organism. The simile may be perceived by specific and sensitive primary regulatory systems that have a crucial role in the dynamic of disease as disturbing signal, which may trigger a homeodynamic reaction of the network that shifts the target system towards a new dynamical state, attractor, proximal to the healthy state. The proving of medicines was used for centuries to describe the disturbing capacity of a number of natural and artificial substances, thus making possible to use them as targeted therapeutic agents in sick people, homeopathic pharmacopoeia. Due to the extreme sensitivity of primate biological systems, I mean primate, the systems inside our network, our disturbed networks, the system which have been recruited during the disease, these are primate, these are hypersensitive. So homeo drugs may act at extremely low doses or high dilutions and dynamization. The clinical experience and the statistics, especially the prognostic factor research, may confirm or not confirm this traditional evidence. I hope that by this language we can speak in scientific way and to try to convince our doctor college formed in modern university that homeopathy is completely rational, is a rational pharmacopoeia and pharmaceutical system. Many wish all over the world, and thank for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Paolo Bellavit. That was
I
fascinating.
saved 5 minutes even.
Thank you. That was very nice, very kind of you. We are running a little over time, so I appreciate. We all appreciate that. So it's my pleasure now to invite Dr. Nirurka Menezes to give her talk. Please share your presentation and proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the organization. Unfortunately, I will speak in my native language, it's Spanish, but I think there is the translation. Today, I would like to talk, me gustaría hablar sobre la homeopatía y la epigenética y compartir con ustedes algunas de las experiencias que he tenido en el laboratorio. Vamos a comenzar pues explicando brevemente el concepto de epigenética. La epigenética pues consiste en las modificaciones no específicamente en la secuencia del ADN, sino en las proteínas asociadas a él o asociadas a la molécula como tal. Entonces, son modificaciones sobre la secuencia del ADN y no sobre las bases nitrogenadas, por sí decirlo. En esta figura, pues, pueden ver los principales blancos sobre las modificaciones epigenéticas que pueden ser de varios tipos. Modificaciones pueden ser metilaciones, acetilaciones, etcétera, entre otras. Entonces, ¿cómo ocurre este proceso? Vamos a explicar cómo ocurre la metilación del ADN específicamente en la citosina. Aquí tenemos el esquema muy simple de la base nitrogenada de la citosina y usando pues un par de enzimas, la S-adenosilmetionina, que es el donador del grupo metilo, y la S-adenosil homocisteína, que es el aceptor, el que capta este grupo metilo, entonces vamos a obtener una citosina modificada. Como ustedes ven, en la posición número 5 se ha cambiado por un carbono, en lugar del carbono aparece un grupo metilo. Esto es básicamente lo que ocurre cuando las células, cuando el ADN es metilado, es acetilado, es modificado con diferentes marcas. Entonces, aquí mostramos lo que ocurre en una célula sana, en el ADN de una célula sana. Es decir, normalmente en esta parte de aquí están todos los genes o los promotores que activan la síntesis de diferentes genes o activan la transcripción para la síntesis de diferentes proteínas. Y en la parte donde están ya sintetizadas o está preparado el material para sintetizar estas proteínas, entonces es que aparecen las metilaciones en el ADN. Este es el escenario normal. Ahora, ¿qué sucede cuando una célula está afectada por una enfermedad? Por ejemplo, el cáncer. este patrón cambia completamente. Y entonces las metilaciones se producen justamente en aquella parte de la secuencia donde están los genes que son encargados de activar todos estos procesos de transcripción para luego tener un feliz final en la síntesis de proteínas. Y como ven, esto se afecta totalmente. Este es básicamente lo que ocurre en el proceso epigenético cuando no es en favor de la salud, sino en contra de la salud. Entonces diríamos que en la parte de arriba es cuando ocurre en favor de la salud y en la parte de abajo cuando ocurre lo que ocurre en contra de la salud. Y esto, pues vamos a hablar un poquito más antes de pasar qué tiene que ver esto con la homeopatía. Pues para que ocurran todas estas modificaciones hay pues ejecutores. Alguien tiene que, o algunos factores tienen que ser los responsables de estos cambios. Y estos son proteínas llamadas escritoras o writers, y estas escritoras son las encargadas de poner las diferentes marcas epigenéticas en los aminoácidos o, por ejemplo, en las colas de las histonas. Ejemplos de esto son las histonas acetiltransferasas o las metiltransferasas. También conocemos otros que son los llamados borradores, que estos son los que se encargan entonces de quitar estas marcas epigenéticas que han sido puestas, como por ejemplo de las histonas de acetilasas o las de metilasas. Y también existen otros ejecutores que son los lectores. La función de estos lectores es muy importante porque ellos lo que tienen que hacer es reconocer dónde hay marcas para luego ejecutar. Entonces, como vemos, hay tres tipos de ejecutores para que todo el proceso epigenético pues, pueda funcionar correctamente. Aquí les traigo un ejemplo de una publicación del 2018 donde se publica el descubrimiento de un nuevo lector. En este caso, esta proteína, lo voy a hablar muy sencillo, muy brevemente. Interviene en la degradación de microRNA, desempeña un papel directo en el transporte y la traducción de los transcritos necesarios para la regeneración axonal en las neuronas sensoriales adultas, interviene en la polaridad celular, la migración celular y el crecimiento de las neuritas, y además estabiliza el transcrito de esta proteína de forma tal que garantiza la estabilización de la producción del ARN mensajero, que puede ser muy importante para la cicatrización de las heridas de la mucosa colónica. Además, esta proteína interactúa con la unidad catalítica de la N6-adenosinmetiltransferasa. Entonces, como vemos, es una proteína que tiene una actividad muy importante y funciona además como lector del tipo modificando la adenosina, metilándola en el carbón número 6. Ahora, vamos a pasar entonces como yo siempre digo, al pollo del arroz con pollo de esta presentación, que es, vamos a hablar un poquito de ciencia y vamos a utilizar como ejemplo análisis del proteoma de líneas celulares de cáncer de pulmón tratadas con carcinosino 200CH. Aquí la pregunta sería, ¿podría ser capaz carcinosino de activar el sistema epigenético de estas células que fueron utilizadas para este experimento? Pues bueno, antes de pasar allá, vamos a hablar un poquito sobre lo que está muy de moda desde hace unas décadas, que son las ciencias ómicas. Como ustedes saben, la genómica, pues es la ciencia que estudia la expresión de genes en una condición específica a través de la secuencia del genoma. A esto se le llama genómica. Producto del proceso de transcripción, entonces tenemos la producción de transcripto y al estudio de todos estos transcriptos se le conoce como transcriptómica. Producto de una traducción, de la traducción, entonces tenemos la síntesis de proteína y al estudio de estas proteínas en una condición específica es lo que se conoce como proteómica. Y finalmente, a través de la traducción de señales, pues se producen ciertos metabolitos y el estudio de todos ellos en una condición específica es lo que conocemos como metabolómica. Ahora, ¿cómo traducimos esto al lenguaje coloquial? Pues la transcriptómica se puede considerar como aquello que la célula puede hacer. La genómica, perdón, la transcriptómica como lo que la célula planea hacer, la proteómica, lo que la célula está haciendo en este momento, y la metabolómica, lo que la célula pues ya hizo. Nosotros vamos a enfocarnos en este caso en la proteómica, que es justo lo que la célula está haciendo ahora, y vamos a ver qué sucede. En este caso, pues la proteómica, para realizar proteómica necesitamos muestras de diferentes partes, pueden ser de cualquier tipo de muestra donde se puedan extraer proteínas. Así que pueden ser muestras de tejidos, muestras de fluidos, pueden ser células, etcétera, etcétera. Y después de extraer estas proteínas, entonces ellas tienen que ser visualizadas o no, pero en este caso se pueden visualizar usando dos tipos de geles de doble dimensión, una dimensión, o simplemente dejarla en una solución, en la solución después de haber extraído las proteínas. Posteriormente, independientemente del caso que se esté analizando, es necesario hacer un corte proteolítico de estas enzimas. ¿Esto qué quiere decir? Hay que cortar estas enzimas en pequeños trocitos, en pequeños péptidos, para poder continuar con los experimentos. Y estos péptidos son separados luego por cromatografía de alta definición, cromatografía líquida de alta precisión, y finalmente usando una ionización de electrospray, entonces se convierte en una especie de aerosol para ser inyectada en el espectrómetro de masa y además ser ionizado. ¿Qué nos da el espectrómetro de masa? Pues nos da un cromatograma que comparado con el cromatograma teórico, entonces podemos saber qué es lo que coincide. Los resultados que coinciden son los resultados con los que nos quedamos, y a partir de ahí pues empezamos a hacer el análisis de nuestros experimentos. Entonces, para este experimento que utilizamos cultivo celular de pulmón A549, hicimos electroforesis de poliacridamida de una dimensión, y como enzima utilizamos la trixina. ¿Por qué? Porque la trixina es una enzima, es una peptidasa que corta o reconoce, lo hidroliza los péptidos en las posiciones donde se encuentran las argininas y las lisinas, por lo cual nos permite tener péptidos bien definidos y de diferentes tamaños. Y como medicamento homeopático, pues usamos, como dije anteriormente, el casinocino 200CH. Ahora, ¿cómo genera los péptidos la trixina? Imaginemos que tenemos que este es un pedacito, un péptido o una proteína, y como pueden ver, los aminoácidos en rojo corresponden a la arginina y los aminoácidos en amarillo a la lisina. Cuando aplicamos trixina, lo que sucede es lo siguiente. Como ustedes ven, ocurre una mezcla de péptidos, hay fragmentación en diferentes péptidos, y puede haber péptidos que tengan sitios o aminoácidos que no han sido reconocidos por la enzima. ¿Por qué? Porque depende de la configuración tridimensional que tenga esta proteína, va a ser más fácil o no llegar a diferentes lugares de la proteína. Por eso pueden haber lugares que no hayan sido reconocidos, o aminoácidos que no hayan sido reconocidos por esta enzima. Entonces, el diagrama de trabajo que hemos usado es el siguiente. En este caso se usaron células confluentes entre el 70 y el 80%. ¿Esto qué quiere decir? Las células pueden llegar a ser confluentes 100%, específicamente estas células, ellas se pegan a la base o a la superficie de los frascos de cultivo, y cuando ellas son 100% confluentes, luego empiezan a crecer, si no se les cambia a otro frasco, empiezan a crecer unas enzimas de la otra, y esto genera competencia por los nutrientes, los cuales también producen toxinas que se van a liberar al medio. Como no queremos este fenómeno, entonces ponemos las células, utilizamos las células que todavía tuvieran espacios para crecer en el frasco con una confluencia entre el 70 y el 80%. Posteriormente, estas células fueron tratadas con el medicamento y con todos los controles, por supuesto, con 10 microlitros de la solución del medicamento diluido en agua destilada. Para eso se pusieron también los controles negativos, como el medio sin ningún tipo de tratamiento, los glóbulos sin impregnar y el agua en el que se usó para diluir estos medicamentos. Y además el control positivo, por supuesto. A todos ellos se les hizo, después de 24 horas de incubación, se les hizo la extracción de proteínas totales. Estas fueron visualizadas en geles de una dimensión y posteriormente cada una de las banditas fueron cortadas para hacer digestión en gel y poder tener los péptidos para posterior análisis usando el espectrómetro de masa. Finalmente se analizaron los resultados y ahora les presento brevemente lo que se obtuvo. Fueron identificadas significativas 79 proteínas. ¿Basados en qué? Esto fue repetido 3 veces, es decir, se realizaron 3 repeticiones, 3 réplicas del experimento en diferentes momentos, y todas las proteínas que fueron identificadas que coincidieron en los 3 experimentos, pero que además se pudieron identificar 2 péptidos o más de cada proteína, fueron consideradas significativas. Entonces, de ellas, las proteínas 21 solo fueron identificadas en presencia de carcinosino, 24 fueron identificadas en los controles negativos, 24 en los controles negativos y 34 en las 2 condiciones, pero estas proteínas fueron reguladas positiva o negativamente. ¿Esto qué quiere decir? Las que fueron reguladas positivamente estaban en mayor abundancia en las que en presencia de carcinosino, y las que fueron reguladas negativamente pues presentaban mayor abundancia o fueron expresadas en mayor intensidad en presencia de los controles negativos. Entonces, a continuación vamos, y esto pues fue muy bueno para nosotros cuando vimos estos resultados, porque realmente no sabíamos qué íbamos a esperar. Cabe decir que se hicieron 2 tipos de análisis, de acuerdo a la localización celular y de acuerdo a la función que tienen en cada proteína en la célula. Y encontramos que estos datos no se los muestro aquí, pero de acuerdo a la localización celular, encontramos proteínas en todos los casos que están representadas en cada uno de los organelos, proteínas citoplasmáticas, proteínas de membranas, proteínas del retículo endoplasmático, etcétera, etcétera. Y esto nos alegró mucho porque evidentemente esto probaba que el medicamento homeopático pues puede llegar a todos los organelos de la célula. A continuación, lo que les voy a mostrar, nos vamos a enfocar en el análisis de desde el punto de vista de la función en las células que tienen cada proteína identificada. A continuación, les muestro la tabla con todas las proteínas que fueron identificadas en los controles negativos. Ahora, aquí, ¿en qué nos tenemos que enfocar? Las proteínas que están en azul son las proteínas que están directamente relacionadas con los mecanismos epigenéticos. En este caso, tenemos las 3 primeras. Las proteínas que están en color moradito son las proteínas que interactúan con proteínas que intervienen directamente en el sistema epigenético de la célula. Y aquí, y las que están en negritas, pues estas son otro tipo de proteínas que aparentemente no tienen ninguna relación con estas proteínas que intervienen en el sistema epigenético de la célula. Y esta que está señalada específicamente en amarillo es un factor proapoptótico de la proteína MYC protoncogen, que es una proteína muy importante en el desarrollo de diferentes tipos de cánceres. Entonces, aquí, como les dije, este es el control negativo, este es el escenario típico de una célula cancerígena o cancerosa. Ahora me gustaría detenerme un momentito en una publicación que fue hecha por un grupo de Barcelona, donde ellos justamente estudiaron la proteína, desarrollaron un fármaco, para inhibir la proteína MYC que es el protoncogen, que según ellos es la clave de progresión de la mayoría de los cánceres. Ellos usaron este fármaco con éxito en in vitro, en experimentos in vitro, y según la investigadora principal, explica que MIC parece ser que inhibe pues la expresión de esta proteína específica, lo que hace que poder combatir pues estos tipos de tumores. Ellos usaron exactamente las mismas tipos de células que usamos nosotros para nuestro experimento. Ahora, la buena noticia es cuál es, que carcinosino inhibe la síntesis del activador transcripcional de la proteína MIC protoncogen. Es decir, que, como vamos a ver a continuación, en las proteínas que fueron identificadas en presencia de carcinosino, no se identificó esta proteína. Es decir, que en presencia carcinosino inhibe el activador transcripcional de la proteína MIC, lo que es un resultado súper importante y súper interesante, porque no necesitamos de un fármaco extra si ya tenemos un medicamento homeopático que inhibe justamente esta importante proteína en el desarrollo de los cánceres. Ahora, ¿qué sucede en el escenario de identificación de las proteínas que fueron identificadas solamente en presencia de carcinosino? Como ustedes ven, las proteínas azules son proteínas que intervienen directamente en el sistema epigenético de las células, ya sean escritores, lectores o borradores, y estas cuatro. Como vemos, son proteínas completamente diferentes y son proteínas más activas. Aquí ya vemos que son metiltransferasas, que son acetiltransferasas, que son proteínas que, bueno, tienen diferentes funciones en el sistema epigenético, y de esto no nos vamos a detener aquí. Y las proteínas que son en marrón son las proteínas que intervienen indirectamente o que interactúan con proteínas que intervienen directamente en el proceso epigenético o en el sistema epigenético de la célula. Y aquí en rojo les traigo una de las proteínas que fueron identificadas o que fueron activadas en presencia de carcinosino, como por ejemplo estas dos, que son proteínas que intervienen activamente en el sistema de defensa, específicamente en el sistema antiviral de la célula. Entonces, como vemos, ¿qué está sucediendo en presencia de carcinosino? La célula está activando todo un mecanismo para recuperar diría yo, la salud que fue perdida, y nuevamente empezar todo el proceso normal de una célula sana. Y como ven, ninguna de las proteínas que fueron identificadas en los controles negativos se encontraron o fue identificada en presencia de carcinosino, lo que quiere decir que carcinosino inhibe pues todas estas proteínas que ya la célula no las necesita para realizar o para sobrevivir, para realizar muerte celular, etcétera, 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 sino que activa otras proteínas que son necesarias para realizar otras funciones en favor de la salud de la célula. Y las proteínas que fueron reguladas positiva y negativamente, encontramos pues todas estas, como ven, una sola de ellas está activamente relacionadas con el sistema epigenético de la célula, y es una proteína que está regulada positivamente, y de las que están reguladas positivamente son estas que están, las primeras que están aquí, como ven aquí, estas que dicen tratadas y que tienen los asteriscos son más abundantes, en mayor cantidad. Entonces quiere decir que la abundancia es mayor con respecto a las células que a los controles. Y entonces en este caso identificamos estas proteínas que están en color marrón, que intervienen o interactúan con proteínas que están relacionadas directamente con el sistema epigenético de la célula. Y luego, en las proteínas que están, como ven de aquí debajo, que están reguladas negativamente en presencia de de carcinocinos, es decir, que su abundancia disminuyó en presencia de carcinocinos, vemos que no encontramos ninguna proteína que interviene directamente en el sistema epigenético, pero sí muchas que están relacionadas indirectamente, porque ellas interactúan con muchas proteínas, con algunas de las proteínas que intervienen en el sistema epigenético de la célula. Y como ustedes ven, todas estas proteínas que están reguladas negativamente son proteínas que ya definitivamente la célula no las necesita con tanta abundancia, en tanta cantidad, por lo que están expresándose otras que son más importantes para recuperar la salud de la célula. ¿Qué podemos concluir o qué podemos sacar en conclusión de esto? Podríamos decir que el medicamento homeopático llega a todos los compartimentos celulares, pero ¿cómo? Pues está más que demostrado que dentro de los medicamentos homeopáticos encontramos nanopartículas que son aparentemente, estas son las encargadas de llevar la información que tiene el medicamento homeopático a todos los compartimentos celulares a través de la membrana plasmática de la célula, y ellas, pues llegando allí, van a activar diferentes rutas metabólicas de la célula, y además van a activar el sistema epigenético de la célula. Esto pudiera ser un resultado interesante. Hay que seguir investigando, por supuesto, enfocado en esta dirección, porque considero que es una parte en que se debe tener en cuenta a la hora de considerar los medicamentos homeopáticos, a la hora de mirarlos desde otra perspectiva. Y entonces, definitivamente, esto es una explicación por lo cual ellos pues activan mecanismos, en este caso epigenéticos, que por alguna razón estuvieron pues dormidos, o no fueron reconocidos por el sistema celular, y nuevamente al ser activados, pues la célula recupera nuevamente su salud. ¿Qué podemos concluir de estos experimentos? Que la acción de los medicamentos homeopáticos ocurre a todos los niveles dentro de la célula, que además los medicamentos homeopáticos pueden ayudar a las células a regular la producción de algunas proteínas, tanto negativas como positivamente, activando además el sistema epigenético de la célula, que la espectrometría de masa puede ser una técnica muy potente que nos puede ayudar a investigar más sobre la acción de los medicamentos homeopáticos en los organismos vivos, y que evidentemente carcinocino inhibe el activador transcripcional de la proteína MYC-proton-cogen. Esto es un resultado muy importante. ¿Qué sigue? Pues continuar realizando investigaciones en esta dirección, y específicamente utilizando medicamentos homeopáticos con diferentes potencias, de diferentes reinos, así como también otros nosodes. Este es el comienzo de varias investigaciones. Ya hemos comenzado a trabajar con otros tipos de líneas celulares y con otros tipos de medicamentos homeopáticos a diferentes potencias y también de diferentes reinos, y estos resultados pues estarán disponibles pues lo antes posible. Muchísimas gracias por su atención, y muchísimas gracias a los organizadores del evento por darme la oportunidad, por invitarme a presentar parte de mis resultados.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I request the chairpersons to kindly say a few words, and don't forget we have to take a picture with everyone, so please keep your camera on. Over to Dr. Jayesh Villare, sir.
Thank you very much. Let me actually begin by thanking everybody, Dr. Meeta Gupta, Dr. Anjali Miglani, for helping with this session, and my co-chair, Dr. Leonid Kosmodemansky. So we had a very interesting session now on basic, fundamental, and preclinical research. So I guess we really spanned the entire spectrum, so to speak. We began with a historical note. It was very nice for Dr. Nikolai Zamarinov to take us through the area, actually the geographical area that Dr. Korsakov was in, and it was interesting to see his contributions to computer science and information technology as well. Then we had Dr. Michael van Wassenhoven give a very erudite lecture using some of the most advanced tools and techniques to characterize homeopathic medicines. And it was great to see revalidation of the nanoparticle hypothesis using other techniques. We didn't have Shailendra with us, but Dr. Shailendra Saksena's talk brought this to a clinical level, a little beyond what the scope of the presentation of the session was, but that's great to have that Japanese encephalitis can actually be treated. And although there are some prior studies in this area, his level of biological expertise that he demonstrated was really great. Next, we had Professor Paolo Bellavit explaining to us very nicely the energy reaction coordinate as a function of disease states, the dynamic equilibrium between these states and how it is disturbed, and the Hahnemannian approach to rectifying it. And lastly, we had a very nice epigenetic modification using erasers and writers that Dr. Menezes kindly presented. So I think this was a superb session, and I'm sure you all will agree, covering a great span. So before I close, let me request my co-chair, Professor Leonid Kosmodemansky, to say a few words, during which I would request everybody to turn on their cameras and get organized for a photograph that the organizers will take. Thank you. Professor Leonid Kosmodemansky, would you like to say a few words, please?
Большое спасибо за возможность принять участие в столь значимом для всех нас мероприятии, глобальном коллоквиуме, проводимой Международной медицинской гомеопатической лигой в этом году, объединяющей все страны возможности развивать и участвовать в продвижении гомеопатии. Огромное спасибо всем, кто принял участие в организации этого события, президенту Международной медицинской гомеопатической лиги Густаво Катальди, конечно же, Раш Мачанда и многие-многие другие, кто активно задействован был в этой работе. И, конечно же, те доклады, которые были представлены, были очень значимы и интересны для всех участников, в том числе и для меня. Огромное всем спасибо.
Thank you so much. It's now time for a photograph. Everybody look into the camera and smile, don't forget. 3, 2, 1. Thank you.